Hi guys, it's Amy with Aim to Plan, and I am here finally for my flip through in my December planner. So I have a very simple setup for December. It was a single planner. It was actually originally in a skinny mini, but I did transfer it back into a mini size just for space reasons. I was running out of room in the skinny mini. So this is the final flip through for 2021, and I'm excited to take a look at it. It's pretty messy, chaotic. Lots of things were happening in December, so you'll see all of that kind of reflected in the planner itself. So the setup itself is my recollections planner, which I converted to be a a disc bound mini size cover. There were no decorations here. I basically just used it very functionally. Since I had this cover, I went ahead and put it in there just so I could transport it and carry this planner with me everywhere. Put a set of covers on here, a set of discs. I don't know if you can tell, but I even selected some gold discs that are like different colors. I mean, it was really not meant to be like making it like picture perfect. I just wanted to use it. So let's go ahead and jump right in. What we have in here is the at a glance pages that I have used on and off for December, well, for 2021. And so for December, I didn't use them. Again, they were initially in a skinny mini, so I had them folded in half. And then I used it for like a good majority of December, but then once we started taking some vacations and traveling, I mentioned this in a previous video, but I like to take a lot more notes in my personal planner for traveling, just because I don't necessarily memory keep in Sophea's memory book like right away. And so I just like to take a ton of notes. Like right here, I crossed off, so this page was not used, and I just pulled in another sheet of paper and just started writing. I like to keep things in chronological order, so I'm just taking notes and notes and notes and notes. So you can kind of see that here. And so, I mean, this is what it looks like. This is a post-it note that I just wrote on, obviously. And then just more notes. I don't know that I decorated at all in this planner, so this will be a really quick flip through. Again, I didn't use this size, so this is still the 6 you can see here. And I just put everything in chronologically. I don't worry so much about like sorting it. I just write it just like in list, or like in basically like a bullet journal style. And I was trying to use up some of my skinny mini supplies here, if I could flip this page, and some of the like random sheets that I had, and so I'm just writing all over the place. So the first like 10 days I was kind of wrapping up the end of our semester as a professor, and so a lot of it's like you can see here like final exams and grading, things like that. And then we moved into where we went on vacation, like pretty much right after final exams ended. So we went into a vacation where we took a Disney cruise. And so I have a lot of notes, again, like crossed this out and just wrote notes wherever. And I haven't mentioned up to this point, but like I basically used the time slots if I needed to, but if I didn't need to, then I mean, sometimes I put times and sometimes I didn't. But then I started saving a bunch of stuff from the Disney cruise. This was stuff that I was initially, I mean, I might still do this. I might move this into Sophea's memory book. So I was punching it in here, putting times, so that way I can kind of remember what we were doing. Here's some trivia sheets. And this is when I had to move to the mini size instead of the skinny mini, because it was getting really, really full. So luckily, I had enough space to do it for this first trip, but then right after this trip, when we got home, I did transfer it into a little bit of a larger system just because it was getting so full. Or maybe I made that decision like right before this trip because it was already kind of full. And so you can just see here, it's just notes and notes and notes. My biggest tip, I think, for doing something like this where you're like functionally planning for me is that I love to be able to track everything chronologically. And so you can see here I put times. I've always been a timed planner. I love doing daily sheets, and I don't worry so much about splitting, for example, journaling up from like notes that I have. I just kind of put it all together. It's one of the reasons why bullet journaling really worked for me, because, you know, like bullet journaling is just meant to like, you list everything down, you create like little icons to designate what goes where, but really at the end of the day, everything ends up on the same page. So your tasks, your events, journaling, all of that goes on the same page. So that's what I kind of do when I like when I'm like kind of, you know, in the moment, just living life. I'm not worried so much about like trying to make it pretty. I just write it all down. I brain dump it. Like right here, I actually could not sleep, so I had to like just brain dump these lists. And this was a list of like tasks. Like normally in bullet journaling, you would have an icon, but I knew that was a list. So I just carried that list forward, and you'll see that a little bit later, where I just had like a running to-do list that I just transferred from day to day. And especially when I was on vacation, like there was one to-do list, but I wasn't really doing anything on the list. It was just a running list. And so I just carried it forward. So I just like to write everything in here, messy and otherwise. It's not meant to be pretty. It's just meant to be functional, to kind of denote what we did. And again, like I try to write a ton when we're on vacation, because I want to go back and be able to put some of this stuff together for Sophea's memory book. So this is the list that I was referring to a little bit earlier, like where I had the brain dump from earlier. Let me show it to you. So it has, for example, like packages and mail, and that ended up on here somewhere. It's on here somewhere, I'm pretty sure. Here it is, packages and mails, right? And so I just transferred the list over and over and over and over again until I started completing some of these things. So like once I started completing it, then all the remaining tasks ended up transferring to a new list. You'll see that new list in just a second. I have random notes to myself on Post-it notes. It's just a mess, right? And here's the list rewritten. And then I rewrite the list again because like here's some more like Post-it notes. Right? But it's just messy, right? Here's the list again. And I just keep adding to the list. So this is what works for me. It's just to have a running to-do list. When I use a style like this, where I'm just like making tons of notes and marking events and things that we've done, I just like to have, I like to go ahead and write all the tasks in, but then I have a separate sheet where I'm just carrying forward tasks and just making sure that I have those things written somewhere. This is a Christmas card list, so I'm not opening that up. But then like, it's just, all the stuff is in here. Like here are my notes from the last service in 2021. Here are notes that I made about like how I'm setting up my 2022 planner. I mean, it's just really all over the place, right? Wrote on random cards. So here's the list carried over again, and I did not finish most of it. And so here, like, this is kind of what I'm talking about here. Like in bullet journaling, you basically write the list. A lot of people do like write it in one single column, but I've always preferred writing events on one side and tasks on the other. So that's what that is. And then once these tasks are finished, they're checked off. But if they're not checked off, they get moved to the list. So you'll see these moved onto the list right over here. I have a couple of notes here, more notes on like planner related stuff. I know I'm going through this pretty quickly, but I mean, it's just my writing. I'm not sure how exciting it is to look at my life in December. But then here I made some notes about like budgeting and trying to, again, use up some of these pages. So I was kind of like looking at my budget for 2021 and what it looked like and all my numbers. You'll see this in a separate video. And so I'm going to break down those numbers. And then here's the list rewritten with all these tasks that I had mentioned right here. So was it this sheet? It was the sheet before. So like right here, like edit my PA Faith, right? It ended up on here somewhere right here. I'm not sure where it ended up because it's pretty, oh, here, edit the PA Faith, right? So it ended up on this list somewhere. So I just carry forward a list, a to-do list from day to day. And that's how it works for me. All right. And like, again, very messy, not at all meant to be pretty. I'm writing notes to myself. My big thing is, and my big tip for if you're a functional planner and you're just worried about losing tasks from the day to day, my personal tips are two. Write everything down, including all your tasks, all the things that you've done, all the events that you're going through. And then just at the end of the day, sit down and look through everything. And just if you see a task come up, write it on a separate list and transfer that separate list with just tasks forward into the next day. Those are my two biggest tips for like getting a handle on like what this looks like. I know it looks messy, but here's the list written again. It still has Christmas letter. It still has email Rachel at the very top because I didn't do those two things. I end up later on, like, actually, like, at the end of the year, on the 31st, just kind of, like, knocking those off and saying, all right, those are just not going to get done, you know? And so here's some more notes to myself, more task lists. I started separating them and categorizing them so I can move them to Remember the Milk, which is the digital task list that I use. Here's some last little notes about, I'm not sure what that's about. But yeah, just some like things that I did right after I started organizing, like doing the major reorg of my tasks. And then here's the list again, or not a list again, some other things that I was doing. I was printing out some photos. And so I wrote a little message on there and just glued that in there. And last, of the day, and I ended up New Year's Eve at my in-laws house to celebrate and bring in 2022. So again, it was a super messy flip through. Like, this is real life for me. I actually love planning like this. I just feel like a lot of times we want it to be pretty planning, but for me, planning is meant to be something that documents what's going on in the future for me, and I really want to be able to track those things. I knew what was happening in December. We had major events happening, so it's kind of hard to forget when you're like going to be gone for 10 days out of the month. And so instead of using it as a planner per se, I was really using it more so as a journal to document some of the big things that were happening in our lives in those moments. So that way, especially when I sit down with Sophea's memory book, I can really go back and kind of recall what was going on in terms of emotions and thoughts. And like, I've journaled, and so I can read some of my own thoughts on what happened there. So anyway, I know that was a quick flip through. I know that it was really messy and it might be overwhelming for a lot of people, but really, like, coming from the bullet journaling world into the happy planner, I feel like a lot of the techniques for bullet journaling can be adapted to the happy planner, but I feel like using a daily system, which this was not happy planner, but like using a daily system and just using the supplies that you have on hand is also completely appropriate. Like, you can absolutely do what you need to do in terms of planning and journaling with the supplies you have on hand. You don't need something brand new to do it. All it requires is, for you to write things down and to make sure that you're not dropping tasks in the meantime. And so those are the big things for me, is to write everything down and to just move your tasks from day to day, so that way some tasks don't fall through the cracks. And so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. It is messy planning, but sometimes I feel like that's necessary. Everything can't be pretty planning. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel. And until the next video, bye guys.